Hi, welcome back to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in the last video of this series, I invited you to join me in deciding which investigators we should use for this playthrough of Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. Well, the results are in, and so in this video, I want to share with you the backstories of these characters. How did they meet each other? Why are they working together? And exactly what are they working on? In the next video, Luke will be joining me. We'll actually start the playthrough itself. But at the end of this video, I'm going to leave you with a decision to make as well to kick us off, so stick around for that. For now, let's go to the table and learn about these characters. Okay, well actually one thing you didn't get to vote on was this choice. Fan favorite, the cult-bashing professor, Harvey Walters. I had to have him in this investigation. He did suffer a cruel fate in our first playthrough, but even the Elder Gods couldn't restrain him. He fought his way through outer dimensional hells, and he's back. His ability says that as an action, he can give a character within range a clue token once per round. Our scenario gave us starting items, and Luke and I assigned the 2x4 to Harvey, which I like to think of as actually representing his cane. Not only can it be used as a heavy weapon, but as an action, it can be dropped and then placed against the door to act as a barricade if needed. Then later, you can pick it up and use it as a heavy weapon once again. The character who got the most votes from all of you was William York, a downtrodden actor who just couldn't land a solid gig and in desperation turned to a career in grave digging. His work led to a discovery that many of his graves weren't able to hold their bodies as several started disappearing. And looking for an explanation, he of course went to the university where he met Professor Walters, and they've been working together ever since. William's ability states that whenever a monster is defeated, he gains a clue. He also has some whiskey, a leftover habit from dealing with the frustrations of never making it as a Shakespearean actor. With this, as an action, he can discard up to 2 face-down horror, and then the card would be flipped over for a new effect that I'll save for later. He also has a fire extinguisher, which Harvey asked him to bring, knowing that cultists love to be reckless with fire, and because it also doubles as a heavy weapon. And this brings us to the next investigator you selected, Min Tai Fan, who worked as a secretary for a well-known importer. However, over time, she noticed that the articles in his collection started to take on a dark and profane nature, and he became obsessed with them until eventually her boss took his own life. She confided her concerns to her friend at the time, William York, that she had met when her employer was buried. It turned out, as it related to concerns over a growing occult presence in their town, they both shared much in common. Her ability states that once per round, she or another investigator in range can re-roll 1 die during a test. One of the artifacts she retrieved from her employer's collection was a spell to instill bravery, which allows her or another investigator in range to discard 1 horror. She also carries candles with her, as her friend's colleague Harvey advised that the mansion they would be visiting might not have trustworthy lighting. So those are our chosen characters. And on the backs of each, you will find a background story, and I've used some of the information there, but I've also embellished some myself to explain how these characters met and why they're now working together on this investigation. And what is this investigation? Well, a lot of the information in this game is going to be provided to us by the application, and I'm not actually going to be showing that on screen very often during the videos. Instead, I'll just describe to you what it's telling me. But let's go through right now some screenshots that I took while I was preparing the setup so I can explain how we've gotten to this point just before we start playing the game. After starting up the application, I first chose a new game, and of the available scenarios, I picked the Cycle of Eternity. From the available investigators, I made our selections, but you'll notice Harvey Walters is not an option. I didn't want to tell the application that we'd be using the first edition elements, as I wanted to stick to the components that I have painted. So anytime the app refers to Carson, shown here, it will actually be Harvey for our purposes. For anyone who's curious, my figures are painted by Peninsula Painting Services, and I'll put a link to them in the description of this video. Next, the application told us the starting items to collect, which we already distributed, along with 2 clue tokens for each investigator. Next, we were taken through the narrative story, which brings our investigators to the beginning of their adventure, which I'll summarize for you now. In short, after a series of disappearances in a wealthy neighborhood, we eventually received a call from a panicked butler who worked at the Vanderbilt estate. His master's mother was recently deceased, and he's been concerned that William Vanderbilt is just not himself, citing unnatural occurrences around the mansion. With this request for help, your team finally has a new lead in your search, and you're off to investigate. When you arrive at the mansion, you get no answer after pounding loudly on the door, and instead, After a quick try on the handle, you realize the door is open and you step inside. To your left, you notice a small table littered with papers. Across the hall and further down, your eye catches the sight of a peculiar painting of a nighttime landscape, which you only catch a quick glimpse of before your attention is diverted by a loud crash of pots and pans coming from the room on the other side of this door to your right. You're pretty sure you heard shouts from there as well. Harvey knew better than to react. He held back his companions to first point out the 2 bookcases that could be used as barricades should the case arise. He also pointed out a hallway that remained out of sight from their current position. Not to mention all the other closed doors that could lead to, well, anything. With their surroundings assessed, they turned to one another and tried to devise a plan. And now we're really ready to begin. In the comments below, I'd like you to tell me which investigator we should activate first and what actions they should take. Now obviously, if you want to search or explore, you might only propose one action just to wait and see what's going to happen next, and that's perfectly fine. If you like what someone suggests, give them a thumbs up. If you don't, propose your own suggestion and maybe someone will vote for that. Whichever one gets the most votes, that's what we'll come back and do, and Luke will be joining me to help in this playthrough. So until the next episode, thanks for watching.